going on? Really? Really? Yo, look, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Lion's Den. Hopefully everything is good with you. Welcome. If this is your first time tuning in, what's going on? If this is your second, third, fourth time, what up, doe? That's how we do. Hit the share button. For those of you that is, your first time, what we focus on, ladies and gentlemen, is all things leadership, growth, and development with the call to action from the household to out in the community. You dig? So that's what we're about. Now, before we go straight into it and give it to Herm, I do want to give a straight shout out and prayers and thoughts to everyone that was hit hard in St. Louis. Y'all, this past Friday, it's a tornado came, y'all, devastated right there in North County, excuse me. And it was tragic, right? But shout out to everybody that came together and that's coming together, right? Giving all types of things, right? There's people without homes, water, electricity, all of that. So shout out to the Divine Nine, the churches, just people like us, right? And what we will be doing too, I'm going to link up with another organization so that we too can be a part of that help, because those individuals do, need our help. And so that's going to be coming in the next day or so. Yeah. But anyway, what's up with you, old buddy?
And shout out to the city, county employees also that are, yes, in that effort, man. Because it like as a recent, couple years ago, we went through it here in Clarksville, with tornadoes tearing up the city. And I just left North County, and to see people, going through the same thing. Yeah, man, shout out and heart goes out to you guys. And, whatever we can do to help, we definitely will do. We definitely will help.
Definitely.
Because, we're always from the windows to the wall when it comes to support.
Definitely. So how you been, bro? Hey, what's good seeing y'all today, man?
Man, for sure, man. I just got into the house. Bro. I couldn't even get my shirt on, man. I ran straight into the house. It's either get my shirt or pour my jack.
I had
to pour my jack, man. I had to get myself together.
You see that? The brand, y'all. Brand. He's focused on brand.
Well, anyway. Good, man. It's always good, man. Got to sit down with y'all, man, and fellowship, man. It's one thing to see each other online all the time, but to have that face-to-face interaction, man, lets me know that you really can't beat me in basketball. So we got to cut that right there. You know what I'm saying? I sized you up, and it's not happening.
Right on. So anyway, but anyway, look, we're gonna go into this because the level of delusion is out of line. We're gonna go into this show, y'all. We're gonna this is super dope, man. Well, look, give us a quick synopsis, man, as far as are we having this conversation.
So this for me, this conversation has been long overdue, right? For a while, over the internet, over the media, right, wrong, or indifferent, there's been a constant battle between the community and the police force, and sometimes I believe we get focused. I'm not saying either side. We get focused on seeing it through a stovepipe point of view, like this is it. This is what I'm looking at, and this is how I see it. So today we bring in on a special guest today to speak about it from the officer's point of view, and also, a member of the community's point of view, all in one. And I'm excited to have him on. He's a native of Clarksville, Tennessee, Kenwood Knight, much respect, big up. But now he's moved on to do bigger and better things in the city of Evansville, as he is the police chief of that city. Not to say that he's speaking as in that aspect, but I just want to put the level of importance that we think this conversation is, and why we just couldn't have just anybody come on and have this talk with us.
That's right.
All right. Y'all could welcome, classmate of mine, friend of mine, Chief Philip Smith. But we ain't gonna call him Chief no more during this conversation, because he's on here as Philip Smith, Phil, Smith, whatever. Big head, whatever you want to call it.
No, welcome, brother.
North side, baby.
Hey, how you doing, brother? Welcome on to the Lion's Den, bro.
Hey, I'm doing better than I deserve to be. Thank you for having me.
There you go, man. Well, look, man, he gave you a real quick introduction, but if you don't mind, man, just giving your own to our audience, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. I hate that open-ended question. Tell me a little bit because there's so much about everybody, right?
Yeah.
No, just the Cliff Notes version, man. I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee. Like Herm said, graduate class of 2002, Kenwood Knight. Right after high school, I moved on to Lane College, started my collegiate career. Shortly after my first year there, transferred to this unknown place that was unknown to me, Evansville, Indiana, to the University of Southern Indiana. Got my degree in radio, television, and broadcasting. And just like everybody with a degree, didn't work in the field at all. I actually started working out in education. I worked as an after-school programs coordinator for a few years. And then I went on to alternative high school and worked as an extension of the guidance counselor doing college readiness. And that was great. And while I was there, that is where I was approached by officers who worked off duty in the school for security purposes and safety purposes. And they just asked me, you ever thought about being a police officer? And my answer was no.
Right.
I never thought about being a police officer. I didn't hang with police officers. I didn't know, I knew police officers, from like my neighborhood, some of my friends' dads, because I lived in an area called Pembroke Place in Clarksville. Some of the cats that lived there, their dads were police officers, but it wasn't really too much interaction with them. The most interaction I had with law enforcement was with our school police officer. We had a school resource officer. Shout out to Sonny Goodowens. But that was the most interaction I ever had with officers. So I never thought about it. This officer convinced me to do what's called a ride along. And everything I thought about law enforcement, I thought about the high-speed chases, the fights, the shoot, everything that Hollywood shows you about law enforcement is why I had no interest in law enforcement. But then I went on this ride-along, and it was I saw an opportunity to just help people and talk to people, conflict resolution, right, which is what I had done working in the school corporation. I still say it to this day, the best training I've ever gotten for any part of my law enforcement career was my time working in the school corporation.
There you go. I like that.
Hey, so appreciate that, man. And I think that's very important that you did link working in the school and after school programs and stuff like that as far as police work, because one thing that I respect about here in Clarksville is that we do have a strong community presence with the police department here with take for instance jet officers, the juvenile engagement team. But my question is, what is some of the challenges you guys have when it comes to building trust within the community? And when I say you guys, I'm talking about officers as a whole, you know what I mean, as a network, so you can speak broad when you talk about it, because it's not just Evansville that we're talking about. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the first and obvious hurdle is something that we talked about offline before we even got here, is just the original inception, depending on where you are, of law enforcement. And law enforcement in the beginning was basically used to capture slaves, right? And those stories get passed down. So there's a lot of folks that have that view of law enforcement just because of the stories that were passed down to them. Then there's some other things that are, whether you can help it or not, just the mere fact that we are in patrol cars, right? There's a separation, right? There's a reason why basketball, people sit on the floor in basketball, because you're so up close to the sport, right? There's a familiarity. That's why basketball players are more, noticeable and recognizable than, let's say, NFL players who wear helmets. They're kind of closed off because of that aspect, right? We're in cars. And so that's why it's important and pertinent to get out of those cars at times and to try to build those relationships. You see this person who has this uniform on, press shiny, so now we got outer carriers. So some people talk about the militarization look of law enforcement. So there's a lot of things that have been implanted in the minds of individuals that create and aid those barriers. But also on the side of law enforcement, we can kind of put ourselves in a box where we only hang with our own kind, right? We only we have to good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's just, we got the thin blue line, right? And you start being comfortable with those like-minded people. And so you start catching yourself only hanging out with the people you work with, only, watching social media videos that, are about what you do and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a group think also within in the profession.
No, I'll see. You know what? That makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad that you said that too, because I think that we take that for granted. Like me and Herm, we've shit, man. How long we been retired? What, since 2020, right? So yeah. So, but it's a thing when you're still having conversations with like-minded individuals versus the ones that you don't. So I'm glad that you spoke on that. But here I got a question though, and I think you spoke on it a little bit, but I would love for you to dive into it. How do you foster trust and open communication between police department and marginalized communities in your city?
Yeah, first of all, you just got to be, and that's a really good question. First of all, you just got to be ready to be honest and open and understand that tough conversations aren't necessarily a bad thing. You got to take ownership of things, whether you did them or those before you did them. Like, you have to acknowledge. I think people go wrong when they just don't want to acknowledge that things have happened. You can't just wipe stuff away and be like, no, that wasn't us though. So we good. No, acknowledge those things that may cause emotional harm, conflict, and then reiterate that, what, I hear you, empathize. Empathy is very huge. I hear you, I hear what you're saying, I see what you're saying. And let me tell you from my perspective, this is what I see. Invite people to your world, so to speak. I think in law enforcement, historically in law enforcement, we've kind of wanted people to come to us, even with our recruiting, right? It's always been, people's, dad worked there, their uncle, their grandfather worked there, so they're going to go into law enforcement because of that. So that's kind of traditionally been the recruitment model for law enforcement over the long haul, right? But now we're getting into a point to where a lot of people's kids aren't necessarily getting into it. So we gotta branch out and try to get different folks, to join this profession, which is a great and noble profession. I say it all the time. You know what the best recruitment for the United States Navy was?
What's that?
The movie
Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Top Gun. And we don't have that. You go get Hollywood for law enforcement. What's that? Hollywood and law enforcement is the disgruntled cop. Is like,
or look, Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey,
you gotta get a new version of that, because that is a dope cop movie now.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Axel Foley. But even Axel Foley, even that movie. What did they portray the police officers to be?
Rebellious.
He was he was defiant. He was rebellious. He was a cowboy. He
real life.
He broke the rules to do things. And
came from Detroit, so that's another thing. He was out of line.
And though it was comedy and good to see, but those things, that's what people see.
That's right.
When they see law enforcement, they think, they break the rules to get what they want. So we have to combat those things. But yes, you have to be empathetic. You have to be transparent, and you have to be willing to sit and listen to have those tough conversations to kind of create, an environment for understanding.
That's right.
So for me, Phil, I was always a guy that I back the blue. You know what I mean? I do.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
But that doesn't mean that I think that the blue is never wrong. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, you guys are made of people. But I think one of the biggest missteps was unifiedly, I mean, worldwide, not worldwide, but just in America, when Black Lives Matter came out, right? Now, I don't believe in the organization of Black Lives Matter, but I believed in the concept of it. You know what I mean? Black Lives Matter. I believe one of the things that the cops, the police force as a whole dropped the ball on was creating Blue Lives Matter to combat that. You know what I mean? It sounded like it was a combatant of Black Lives Matter, because we never heard Blue Lives Matter until Black Lives Matter came out. When we talk about community and unity and stuff like that, I think that it would have been more like, yeah, we understand that Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? But coming out with Blue Lives Matter seems like, hey, we matter, not you guys. So I just want to know your opinion about, you know what I'm saying, how that all came about.
Herm, it may be unpopular for me to say this, but I kind of see what you're saying, and I kind of actually had the same kind of thought process when it first happened, when I first heard it. I also don't agree with every aspect of Black Lives Matters. The implementation of some of the the policies, the shouting down of law enforcement and the shouting down of people. And I didn't agree with that aspect of it. I was not upset though when you had a collection of folks that said, "Hey, our lives matter." I'm of the belief, instead of just being upset that somebody says Black Lives Matter, and I'm not offended by you saying that Black Lives Matter. Why don't we just ask, like, what is that about? Like, where did that come from? What's the genesis of that? And I think that's where it is where you want to have more understanding of it instead of just combating it with, well, all lives matter, right? Yes, I absolutely all lives matter. And just by creating Black Lives Matter, they never said that all lives didn't matter, or they never said that blue lives didn't matter. Well, at some point, several folks of that, in that group did say that blue lives don't matter, and there's no such thing as a blue life. There's only human life, and that's that's a separation that we have created, and not we as the police, but just we as human beings have created to separate law enforcement from regular society. We're a part of this community. There's no blue life. That I'm not blue. I'm Philip. I'm made of flesh and blood, right? I shop at the same grocery stores, but once upon a time I went to the same barbershops. So there is no separation. There's only the community, and there are those that enforce the laws of the land. You need that so that there's not chaos. And back to what we talked about earlier, the empathetic approach to where you hear people out and listen to people out can do a lot in the way of bridging instead of a separation.
And I'm glad you said that, man. So even with that, well, first, before we go into that next question, everybody, if y'all enjoying this, please let us know, chime in. Let's give these hearts on up, hit the share button. You know what I mean? Stop acting funny style, because we want to make sure that individuals are hearing this. It's not many times we have individuals of this magnitude on to have conversations about the things that we're assuming. You get what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong. This is his perspective, and how long have you been in the force?
Almost 13 years.
Almost 13 years. So this is an opportunity for us to learn, y'all. Real talk. So speaking a little bit about that, and don't want to hone in too much on it, but it seems as though that you have a perspective of a level head. You get what I'm saying? And which is extremely noble, right, to actually hear. But could you share any personal experiences that helped you, that helped to shape how you view the intersection of race and policing? Because I'm sure you operate and see individuals that look like you and individuals that you don't. You get what I'm saying? So how do you do that?
Let's pull the curtain back a little bit, right? When you become a law enforcement officer, as a Black man, there is no prouder the community than the Black community to see Black police officers get the job, right? I mean, that is just call it what it is. It's just like, and I'm sure the same is with Latino officers, and like you see one of our own doing it, because anything outside of a white male is a minority in the profession, right? And that's white female, Black female, what you name it. That's your minority in the profession. So people like to see one of their own get in that, that profession. It's a respected profession, right?
Right.
And it's all cool until you enforce.
Accountability.
Then when you enforce,
you're a coon.
Sell out, you Uncle Tom, you the man, you 5-0, you one time.
Trying to impress the white people.
It's almost like I can read my mind. And so I'm just to take back in my own area. Let's go back to around the time after the George Floyd things occurred. There were peaceful protests all over the land. I know that media showed a lot of the riots, a lot of the stuff that wasn't peaceful, and shame on anybody that participated in anything that wasn't peaceful, that was criminal in essence. But there were also a lot of peaceful protests, and in my community there was a peaceful protest. Now, what's your definition of peaceful? If your definition of peaceful is they didn't break nothing, they didn't hit nobody, then absolutely. But man, there was some harsh stuff said to us on the front lines. I'm sure. Right. And myself and a couple of other minority officers that were on those front lines, we kind of got it the worst, and it was, I can see that. The ironic part about that is the people that were yelling at us were holding signs that said Black Lives Matter, but honed in on the Black police officers.
That's right.
It was like, It's a bit of an oxymoron, is it not?
But in reality, from their point of view, you are in line with the quote unquote perpetrator. You see what I'm saying?
But herein lies the double standard in that. It's,
Yeah.
You can't change the institution from the outside. So we need people
Correct.
in there with level heads, like you said, to try to change the institution. But once those people get in there, we don't even care. We don't differentiate off site. When we see them, we just throw them right in there with the group of others. So, like, at what point do you give somebody enough grace to try to make any institutional changes?
You know, I think one of the biggest things that's working, you can see George Floyd thing happened in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to answer for it all the way to Evansville, Indiana.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think one of the things that you guys working against is this right here. You know what I'm saying? That people are thinking, hey, since it happened there, then I got a problem with my police force. I'm gonna speak for Clarksville. We've never had any kind of issue. Let me dial that back a little bit. We don't have the same problems here in this city that other cities have when it comes to police departments. But now, you know what I'm saying, it feels like our police department has to answer for what things are happening in Chicago, California, Texas, you know what I'm saying, Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Now they got it, just like we have a good community policing program, you know what I'm saying? The cops are in the community trying to help. But when something happens, people in this city wants to protest against our cops.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel the same thing?
Yes. That does happen. And yes, we do feel the same thing in the same way. And it's we get grouped together based off of any action, especially if it's perceived as immoral or improper. And that's just the nature of the beast, and ain't no point in crying about it. That just is what it is, and we have to understand that that's going to happen.
You know what? I believe too, man. I'm sorry not to cut you off. I believe that's the same thing that happened back in the day, right, in Vietnam. You see what I'm saying? Like, right? So when you got the peace talks and individuals that feel as though, hey, if you're a part of the government, and just wearing a uniform, even though you're trying to, have a career, take care of your family and everything, you're just following quote unquote orders, but to the outside populace that doesn't know the whole story of it, you're associated with those individuals. So I can see that individuals being guilty by association. Oh
yeah, that's been my experience.
But on top of that, though, if you're in the community and you know that your officers are in the community trying to make positive change, right? Positive. Why would you lump them together with a cop that's, you know what I'm saying, all the way in the north? Now, at least with the Vietnam stuff, we're all in the military. We fall under the same government. Cops fall under state and city, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that.
But think about it though. You're talking about people that don't know structure. They don't know. Look, a police is the police. You know what I'm saying? Am I lying?
Like, that's what Lil Boosie said.
Right? Look, hey, you know what I'm talking about? So I don't care if something that says you police and you drive something that say police, you are guilty to whatever happened in California, right? Rodney King, you was guilty of that. You was a part of that. You know what I mean? Even though I was in high school when that happened, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying?
It's Seth, to your point, it doesn't even have to deal with the police, and we're guilty of it. Trayvon Martin, for instance.
There you go.
Right.
It had nothing to do with law enforcement, but they got laid in our lap. Like law enforcement was a part of that.
Yeah, because y'all not lawyers or none of that. You know what I mean? Y'all don't pass sentence or anything like that. But.
No, and Herm, that's a really good point that you bring that up, Herm. I went to high school just like you guys did, right? Where in school, where in education are we taught the laws of the land, right? I had U.S. government as a class, but I didn't learn anything about state statute or anything like that. I didn't learn anything about 17-year-old Phil has to, be a certain way. But the moment I turn 18, a rug is snatched from me, and I'm supposed to be able to understand all these laws, abide by all these laws that I was never taught. Right? It's never taught at any point or any level. And then so which goes back to why I brought this up. There's a misunderstanding there's a lack of knowledge. There's an ignorance of what the police actually do versus what the prosecutor actually does. I don't know exactly how to, fix that part of it. But, we do our part in law enforcement by having things like community academies or citizens academies or whatever.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
But, however, I want to go into this real quick. And so shout out to Terry. She says, is it possible people are protesting based on their experiences with policemen, right? Even if it isn't where they currently live. I think it's the uniform that they are opposing.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with Terry at all. But again, in every uniform is an individual that has a heartbeat and has a brain. And instead of just shouting those people down because of what they're wearing, what about the conversations that we can have? And the same can be said for us in law enforcement. Just because somebody looks a certain way,
right,
or is in a certain area, let's lead with wanting to understand and lead with some empathy and trying to.
Now, Herm, all right, hold on, man. Give me a second, bro.
What?
Give me a second. Now, I need to push back a little bit on that, man, because Phil, you may be an anomaly. Okay, you may be a police unicorn, if you will. All right, let's be real. Okay, because I am of the, I would say the mindset that our level of anxiety is heightened when we're driving and we see the look. No, outside of that, right? Because it's experience. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, we're different generations, right? So if here it is, I see lights behind me. Okay. I got all my registration, everything is good to go, but something is like, ugh, damn it. Is this the day? You get what I mean? I don't know.
I still get nervous when lights come behind me. And
so there's a level, there's a subconscious thought process. Like, how do you deal with that and knowing that there's a level of anxiety? You may have it being a police officer, right? Because you don't know what who you're stopping, but that other person may have that level of anxiety as well. Like, how do you feel about that?
I think everybody has a level of some sort of anxiety when the berries and cherries get behind them, so to speak, right? Because they represent the authority that may be writing me a citation or whatever the case may be.
Whooping my ass.
Well, so
you see, right, and it may not be the department.
Yes, and that can be based. And what are you basing it off of, Seth? Let me ask you personally. Have you ever been beat up by the police?
I haven't. Me personally, but I have been in a situation back at home when my friend was.
Okay.
And it was so senseless. You get what I'm saying? We was in high school. And so, but you get what I mean? So yes, no, it did not happen to Seth. And this was prior to cell phones. You get what I mean?
But what you saw molded your thought process.
Absolutely.
You
know what I mean?
See, I've been jacked up by the cop, you know what I mean? But it was due to my own action that led me to get slammed on the hood and suplexed, you know what I mean? Because I'm snatching away and telling him don't put his hands on me. You know what I'm saying? I've had those interactions with cops. And from my experience, I see that most of the time,
okay,
if you just do what hey, give me your name. Here's my name. Where's your registration? Here it is. They're not looking to just snatch you out the car and start kicking your ass. You know what I mean? If you buck it back, I know my rights and doing all this crazy stuff, smelling like weed, you might get asked to get pulled out. Hey, we need you to step out of the car. I ain't got to step out the car. It's all over social media, man. These people talking crazy. I ain't got to step out of the car. I know my rights. I'm a sovereign citizen or whatever. You know what I mean?
So if I may speak on that, just a bit. Yes, we see those videos with First Amendment auditors and sovereign citizens. We do see those, and which goes back to my earlier point about when do we teach individuals that have to adhere to the law, right? We've seen the videos where the driver says they don't have to get out of the vehicle. I didn't do nothing. I ain't got to stop out the vehicle. I want your supervisor, which you can request a supervisor, but you do have to get out of the vehicle if you're stopped for a lawful reason, and the officer asks you to get out the vehicle. There's a Supreme Court. There's a case, Pennsylvania versus Mims, is the case that allows us to get the driver out of the vehicle if that driver is suspected to have committed a violation. Right. Same with a passenger. If the passenger is suspected of having a violation, Maryland v. Wilson is the court ruling that allows the officer the ability to get the passenger out of the vehicle, right? And I know we're going to talk about a little bit later use of force. You have the 3-pronged reasonableness test from Graham versus Connor. Those are the cases the courts guide us, right? And what law enforcement can do. And what I tell my officers is get to know these cases, get to know these laws, because would you take your car to a mechanic that don't know how to work on cars?
No, of course not. No, absolutely.
So you want your police force to understand the laws, but you also want the citizens.
That's what
laws.
Absolutely.
Right. So you can prevent being in, spots. I have a teenage son and a teenage daughter. I want them to understand you don't hold court on the side of the road. You have an actual courthouse. Mm-hmm. You have a court date. If they say you did something, okay, be quiet. I'll get my attorney and we'll handle this in court.
And and man, I promise you, I do believe, and honestly, and for everyone, I really do believe that that's how it should be. Okay, I really do believe, and I agree it should be that way. But also too, I don't even think we would be really talking about it if it was universally true. Because, like I said earlier, I do believe that you have your best interest and the citizens' best interest at heart. But like we have some questions here or statements, there's a mutual level of education on both sides. Like, so for example, you just gave some very intriguing cases that I would love to understand more of. However, there could be a piece missing. Shouldn't that officer tell the person that's in the car why they suspect them for breaking the rule instead of look, I'm the law, you need to get your ass out? You see what I'm saying? So Absolutely. It goes, you see what I'm saying? But here, let me go into these real quick. So we got Sharita. All right, so Sharita said, what's up, Sharita? She says, great points about being educated about the law. You learn them, honestly, more than you break them, or your family has gotten into trouble. Education is empowerment. Now, that's true. Now, here's something else now, like you speak on. Now, we had a conversation about this earlier. Can you speak on the proper protocol when being pulled over? All right. Is it state driven? Or because, as she says, we hear lots of quote unquote best practices. All of them are different. So this conversation came. Listen,
is that Terry again?
That's Terry. Okay, so that's my wife. So what she said,
I like Terry.
Yeah. So she's saying this because we had a conversation and other people were involved saying, hey, what you need to do is put your registration, license, and everything on this clip, you see, and put it on the window.
I've heard that too.
Right. If you put it on the window, right? But then they say you're supposed to put everything out there and then go like this.
I used to do that.
Outside. Why?
I used to do that. I don't know, because I was told that. Because somebody told me that. I'm listening to some dumbass tell me keep my hands out like this. I used to do that. Looking stupid. You know what I'm saying? I used to do it.
All right, bro. All right, go ahead. Now, is it state driven or is it what? Like, how can people do things not to get?
There's no law. There's no law that states that the person that stopped has to have their hands.
Wait, hold on. Wait, say it again. Say it again.
There's no law that states that the person has
to have the camera. Get in the camera.
Right, man. I heard that.
But here's the deal, though. Okay, what you guys were in the military? You trained guys. What hurts people?
What do you mean?
Hands.
Okay.
Hands hurt people, right? So that's what can hurt them,
right? Yeah.
Right. And so, how do you show somebody that you're not a threat?
You show it.
That's what I've been told. Keep your hands on the steering wheel.
So personally, when I'm stopped, and I do get stopped, and as a police officer, I've gotten a ticket from another police officer. Mm-hmm. I have for speeding. A Kentucky State Trooper. Them boys don't play. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had my hands on the steering wheel, and when I'm stopped, I always let the officer know. And I've been stopped a couple times since I've been a law enforcement officer. The first thing that when they approach and introduce themselves and tell me why they got me stopped or whatever, the first thing I tell them is, "Hey, I have a firearm on my person and in this vehicle." It's the first thing I tell them. And oftentimes, more often than not, I don't know if they can smell it on me or not. I've had several of the officers or deputies that have stopped me, or troopers, and they'll say, "Where do you work at?" And I guess it's my demeanor. I don't know. Like, you guys know a military guy when you bump him.
Yeah. I
I know other cops when they bump it. I don't know what it is.
It's how y'all say firearm. Y'all
probably so. Probably so. Hey, I have a firearm on me.
Firearm. I have yeah.
I tell them I got a gat. I tell them I got a gat in the car. You know what I mean? So that's why I tell them, dog.
So to answer Terry's question, there proper protocol is making sure that you have articulated to that officer or the officers that you're not a threat. Again, going back to not holding court on the side of the street, and having your day. If you feel like something's not right, there are internal affairs investigations. Divisions that you can report misconduct to. And I know sometimes that answer isn't good enough for people because they're upset right then, they're upset right now, and no, I'm gonna say my piece right now. And it's like that's not the best practice. If you really want to try to get something done, go through those proper channels. And I can tell you from my experience, even before I was in a position of decision making for an agency, I've seen where internal affairs complaints have been, verified.
Oh yeah.
And officers have been held accountable for what goes on. And I know people will use the officers they're never going to get held accountable. That's not true.
No, that's not. I've seen that in the municipalities. You're right.
Yeah. So just not holding court. If you get stopped at night, a good rule of thumb that I'll tell my kids and I do myself, if I get stopped at nighttime, I cut my dome lights on. I want that officer to see inside my vehicle, to know that, look, I ain't got nothing to hide from you, buddy. This is me. I'm safe. Here goes my hands. That's it. Letting that officer, he or she, know that I'm not a threat.
So before we get to that real quick, Seth, I got a question for you. Now, if you didn't work in the municipality, you think that you would have that same perspective, though? Because when you worked in the municipality, you got to see it.
You talking about me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Like, you got to see it when you work in this. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people don't work in a municipality. They don't have that. They don't have that luxury to see that. Yes, cops do get held accountable. You know what I mean?
But so to your point, man, I think I would have still understood because of the military, right? Because just understanding there's a due process for everybody. You dig what I'm saying? You got
one of the world's greatest people worked in IG.
You see? Well, who? I don't know. I don't know who that is. But the deal is that there is a level, and I think that by exposure and understanding just how certain laws, so to speak, are, then you can say, all right, if you have individuals that's charged with holding a community, accountable, who's holding them accountable, right? So there's levels to that. But here, man, I got a question from my homie over here, man, my good mentor of mine. So we got Jeff. He says, is emotional intelligence important on both sides?
Absolutely. Yeah. Jeff, in a word, absolutely. In one word, absolutely. But Herm said something earlier, and I want to get back to this, that human beings are human beings, right?
That's true.
These officers, the individuals, doctors, even before they perform surgery, you don't know before they left home, their wife told them they was leaving her.
That's what I'm saying. Right? Yeah, I'm glad we talked about this, right? So they already they can be coming with anything in life.
Yes, and that's what happens when you're dealing with human beings, right? You're dealing with whatever baggage and stuff that comes with them, and sometimes that stuff. Some people are better at separating their emotions from their duty. And that can be the McDonald's worker, that can be the UPS driver, that can be the police officer, that can be the lawyer, that can be the doctor, that can be anybody.
That's true.
Right?
What you was about to say, Herm?
But only one is going to be held accountable for their emotional intelligence. You know what I'm saying? That's the officer. You know what I mean? Because we don't know how the civilian is trained. You know what I mean?
Right.
We only know how the cops should be trained. Well, let me take it back.
Yeah.
We only think, because I don't know how a cop should be trained. I've never been a cop. You know what I'm saying? But it's like in the military. We get training on all that stuff. Emotional intelligence, resiliency, all that stuff gets hammered to us every year. And I think that's one thing that I really wanted to get to was the training of the officers, right? Because you have everybody on the outside thinking how officers should be trained. Now, I do believe that it's important for officers to have, you know what I'm saying, at least working knowledge about what emotional intelligence is, because just because they go off the hinges, the officer should be able to still maintain, you know what I'm saying, professionalism and be like, yo, I know what this is. This dude, they crazy because I done caught them doing something wrong. I still got to maintain my emotional intelligence and chill.
Right.
Yep. No, I agree with that 100%. And, you know, I can speak for my agency. We invest in a lot of training on those topics. You know, and not to try to move the point, but it just it got me thinking. I'm in my 40s now, so when I think of something, I got to say something or I lose it.
Yeah,
I'm not as sharp as I once was. You know, I once went through a training of. I think that my agency has a really robust community police presence. Hell, we take kids to Disney, and I think that's pretty cool. I can't think of any other police agencies that do that. Outside of living in Florida and close by.
Y'all got the casino money, that's why.
Hey, mind your business, man. Hey, don't be counting another man's money.
Now, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
But I sat through a training once about conscious and unconscious bias. And this trainer had, you know, delivered one of the most profound kind of proposals or questions, if you will. He says, you guys think you got a good community policing presence, right? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. He says, do you think that your community policing is so good that you can go into any neighborhood and go up to any house in that neighborhood, knock on the door and ask for a cup of water and know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this cup of water is going to come back untainted, with no impurities in it, and you're able to drink it right there on the porch? Damn. Do you trust your community policing that much?
Whoa.
And
man, that hit like a ton of bricks, didn't it?
Hit like a ton of bricks.
Oh, that's deep.
I was like, how good are we? That's you know, and that's you know, what we created something that our administration started doing on the Wednesdays in the warm months. I get out as chief. Before me, my predecessor did the same thing, and we go to different neighborhoods and we just walk the neighborhoods. And we do it from like 1 to 3, so it's pretty hot, it's pretty warm. And what we found is that a lot of citizens will give you water, but nobody gives you cups of water anymore. Everybody has bottles of water. Yeah. So it kind of, but they're willing to give you a bottle of water.
That's it.
You know, so if anybody's listening and they want to challenge themselves on their customer service or their community service, don't sit on your own laurels. Go out there and see what the people tell you.
Ooh, that is dope. Wow. Hold on. I'm going to try to sit on that for a minute. Damn. You know what? And shout out to everyone that's listening right now. Hopefully that made some sense to y'all, because real talk, I mean, because we talk about what people should do, but are you that one? Right? Like, how good do you think you are? Right? But look, check this out. Shout out to my little sister, man. She posed a good statement. She says maybe high school curriculums should include an intro to the law's course instead of useless courses like algebra. Lord, that's my sister. But anyway, she says something I don't think I'll use in my adult life, and we probably haven't, Nikki. But at the same time, is that something that you all have even thought about, or communicating with the community or even the schools about, if not after school programs or something to introduce? You know what I mean?
So yes, and here's where your issue lies, and maybe it has to start somewhere. It has to, maybe a governor.
I get
somewhere.
You. Yeah, because
of these schools, these education systems, these school corporations. They have these state mandates on curriculum that they have to teach, right? They have to teach Common Core math. They have to teach so much of this literature. They have to. And it's like, where do you fit something new in, right? Where do you fit this in? I agree with Monique. Like, state statutes should be taught to individuals because we all have to abide by them.
Right.
Why are we not taught them?
Right. But, it's the same thing. Like it could be an alternative to ROTC.
Or,
you know what I'm saying?
Or
yes.
how about this? Or the schools now. I don't know if y'all have these, but schools now take time to decompress and meditate.
Yeah, we call it nap time.
Yeah, but I mean,
but think about it, man. Like with the like you have ROTC, right?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Herm, you right here with me, man. I'm the same thing. Why do
that could be something a retired officer could do,
bruh?
You know what I'm saying?
And certain
now you can't get the ones that eat all them donuts the whole time. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, first of all, everybody
round and rebound.
Yes, they
you
do.
Know what I mean?
That was about to be a question. Everybody likes real. I know y'all like them damn donuts.
Disrespectful, but no. Herm, and I can't say this with my community. There is a program that lends itself to that, but that's only one program, right? I think why is it not in every high school? ROTC was in my high school and probably every other high school. And
it is
especially where we grew up at because of the presence of Fort Campbell. Military is like instilled. That's probably the reason why I'm a police officer. Honestly, unconsciously, is that there's like a sense of you come from Clarksville. There's like some sense of servitude inside you. I remember 9/11 happened. I was a senior when 9/11 happened, and you couldn't go anywhere in Clarksville, Tennessee. Because I wasn't in the military, they didn't go anywhere without somebody thanking them for their service, right? And I was, with the crew that we wasn't out there just doing the most, wholesome of things. But whenever we saw somebody in that uniform, 9/11, it was like, hey, salute. That's what. And Herm, am I lying, Herm?
I was deployed, so yeah.
Yeah, well, you was right, hey, salute. Both
right,
salute.
No doubt.
Yeah, I deployed after 9/11. Yeah, I was gone.
I'm glad y'all made it back, man.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Here's something else. How does being a leader in a predominantly white field, right, where you are, shape your decisions, right, that you make and the strategies that you implement? Because because you are you the police chief?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you how do you navigate that?
So okay, you answer that on two sides. On one side, race doesn't go into any decisions that you make. You do what's right and what's versus what's wrong, and you get to work along some really good professionals and understand that it don't matter the color of their skin, especially when y'all in the bunker together. I don't care what you look like, as long as you got my back, I got your back, and you doing it the right way, I'm doing it the right way. We hold each other accountable, right? There's that side of it. But then there's also the other side of it is that I understand that some people think I'm probably like a DEI hire, and I'm not going to make anybody that's an African-American look bad. So I have to be above reproach in my decision-making. I have to be, I have to be confident in decisions I make. I can't leave any room to look like, I'm not this or that. So there's that side of it too, right? Especially when you're younger. My counterparts in my command staff are older than I am, right? And so you have to walk that fine line of being the person that's in charge, but also still being coachable. That's the first thing I told my guys. I was like, hey, you guys in this room collectively or individually have probably forgotten more than I'll know about law enforcement. But just like Dwight Eisenhower was Franklin Roosevelt's man to do the D-Day implementation of the plan because he was the guy. Right now, I'm the guy. Roosevelt could have went with Patton or anybody else that had great experience, but he went with Eisenhower because Eisenhower was his guy at that point. But right now, I'm the guy. And guys, here's the deal. I need you to know that I need your help to do this. I'm not better than any of you. I'm not, more. I'm not as qualified. Heck, you probably could throw a rock within my agency and hit any officer that's more qualified to be in my spot than me. And I recognize that, and that doesn't scare me. But since I am the guy, it also doesn't scare me to make a decision.
There you go.
Okay. Well, no,
that
that's
situation
good.
before, so I understand what that feels like. Yeah.
What do you mean, Herm?
Well, I mean, trying to make a long story short, I became the NCOIC of a section where I was just a select. I didn't even have the rank yet, and you had people that had the rank on for like 10 years, and they weren't the NCOIC. And so I got accused of, well, you know, kissing ass and all that. I was like, me? You know how much of a thug I am? Like, I don't do that. You know what I mean?
Hey,
my record speaks for itself. You know what I'm saying? My record speaks for itself. But what I'm trying to say is, well, all I had to say to them is, the reason why you not the NCOIC and I am has more to say about you than it has to say about me. Yeah, you probably should have been, but for whatever reason, they picked me. You probably fell short some kind of way. I don't know. You know what I mean? But again, it's like what Phil said. You can't be scared to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? Because when that light is on you, it's on you. You know what I mean? You still got a family to feed. So I've been in a situation like I wasn't the chief of police or nothing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I was promoted ahead of my peers when I had significantly less experience. You know what I'm saying? The only thing I had over them is I was just better looking than they were. You know what I mean?
Now moving on. So now here we go. We got another question. He just do the most. Anyway, shout out again, Sharita. She says, how do communities move forward and move away from us versus them, keeping in mind the PTSD on both sides?
Good question.
That is a fantastic question, and if she can find the answer, or if anybody on this panel can find the answer, we need to write a book and sell it and make money. Because I really don't know the answer. That I just know to keep moving towards that. I don't know the complete answer to separating the us from them. Because again, we're all individuals raised in individual homes with individual upbringings, individual religious beliefs. Everything that makes us who we are as an individual comes from someone else, right? And then we pile all those people and put them on one police department or one military or one school corporation, then expect some kind of common outcome with a lot of people that weren't raised in common. So I wish I knew the answer to that, but I can just say this, that once you get in a position of influence, it doesn't have to be leadership over the whole organization. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? If you get in any kind of position to instill, some good faith thoughts, some goodwill thoughts, tell somebody about them, right? And one person at a time, we can get some understanding. Have those tough conversations, one person at a time.
Okay. No, shout out. I could dig that.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that with communities and, you know what I'm saying, everybody, is to keep in the forefront and just being good people. When you set out for the day, like, you know what, every interaction I had with somebody, even if I have to take a little bit of a loss, was I a good person during this interaction? You know what I'm saying? Was I combative? You know what I'm saying? Was I rude? Or was I a good person? You know what I'm saying? That's what I can control about myself. I can't control what the other person do. I can only hope that me being a good person will allow that person the opportunity to be a good person back to me. You know what I'm saying? As long as I lead with respect, I'm hoping that they come back with respect.
Yeah. I can dig that. So look, here's Nikki. She says, I've worked in the mental health for 13 plus years, and I could never be a cop. Body cams show the cops' behavior and the public's shenanigans. People are much too entitled for me. So good on you, sir, and keep up the good work. Salute. Goodness.
I couldn't be a cop neither.
No,
because I will choke slam some like WWE type stuff, man.
I will say this: most people, when they say that they couldn't be a cop, I'm like, those are the kind of people that we need in law enforcement.
Yeah, no, I get you. And Monique,
not Herm. No, he meant that.
Out of line, I wouldn't even have him watching my dog, and I got one. But
hey, he meant it.
I know he do.
He consistent though. He's been like this since.
You know what? Look, hey, that's why we still cool. You know why? Because he ain't never changed. She's been out of line since day one. So now I know what to expect. But my sister, I think she would be an outstanding. Oh my God. She would be real. But I got a question too, and to get close to as we wrap up, man, because you said something that I understand your perspective, not necessarily to push back, but you said that you don't necessarily see the color, and I wonder what that truly means, because I understand what you're saying, but I want to understand truly, right, in lines with this question. So what advice would you give someone, a young individual that look like you, that's considering a career in law enforcement? So that means you have to, in a way, see that color. You get what I mean? And being able to advise them, hey, there's some shit out here that's real. Individuals that may even work with you may not work with you. Do you get what I'm saying? So I want to give you the floor.
Yeah, I think you need to be open to those individuals that may help you, that may be willing to help you despite what they look like, right? I came into, before I was a police officer, man, I was a mouthful of gold teeth. I did all that, that's because that's my culture. But when I came into law enforcement, man, I was one of two African Americans in my academy class, which is a small class. But then I got on to the department, and I was like one of probably 14 or 15 African American officers on a department that holds up to 289 officers, right? So it's a small amount. Man, my experience showed me that I had a lot of the majority of the folks that I talked to, dealt with, had just by sheer number of loans were white officers. Mm-hmm. Man, and they reached out to me and they had my back, right? Mm-hmm. So that guard kind of went down a little bit because public, media, and even some of my older family members that have different experience, that kind of shaped what I thought my experience would be. But then my actual experience was, man, hey, how can I help you, man? The former chief of police is a white man, one of my best friends in the whole wide world. And I wasn't born, he wasn't born being my friend. We developed a friendship, right? He poured into me. He propped me up. He made me his assistant chief. Before I was the chief, I was his assistant chief, right? And I did that for 3 years. Like, man, my experience based as opposed to what I've heard, what I've seen in pop culture and all that, my experience is what helped shape and mold, my perspective. And I just would ask people to let your experiences guide you.
There you go.
But also, there's a fine line with that too, because I believe it was Terry, your wife, that said some people base their interactions or their future interactions off of their experience. That's I think true. As it pertained to car stops or something we were talking about earlier. All people ain't the same.
That's true. Because
just as he had my back, there was some other people that didn't like me. That's right. And that's just, you ain't gonna always be everybody's cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. That's dope, man. Well, look, I want to thank you for being man. Shout out. Well, look, let me give you space, man. You got any final words for our audience, brother? And again, we want to thank you for being man, for real. You gave a lot of different perspectives, but you got anything for us?
I do, Seth and Herm. Thank you both for allowing me to be here, man. I know within my own community, one of the misunderstandings with some of the community members in law enforcement is, not meeting people where they are, right? I challenge law enforcement officials, agencies to start meeting people where they are. Go to the barber shops, go to the local water holes, go to the coffee shops, meet people where they are. But the same challenge has to go to the community. Meet the police where they are. If your police department has community academies, citizens academies, take advantage of those and actually learn about what it is those police officers do, those agencies do. Learn, because they will teach you and they will give you a look behind the curtain about why use of force happens the way it does, what protocols should be followed, what units that your agencies have. Take advantage of those things. Meet people where they are, and that goes for all sides.
Oh, man. No, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. What you got, Herm? Final word, homie.
Hey, on this show, this show is not really designed to change people's mind. That's not what we try to do. But what we do try to do is try to give you information for something that you think about. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I know some people think extreme on one side or the other, and that's cool. But take what we did in this show, you know what I'm saying, and think about, hey, maybe there is another side to the coin that I might want to explore. I'm not trying to tell anybody that they're wrong for the way that they think, okay? But all I'm trying to do is, hey, keep an open mind to another side, and maybe it might just work out for you. That's all I got. Thank you very much, Philip Smith, for coming on. Everybody that came out and watched the show today, appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, yeah, there it is, y'all. I ain't gonna foot stump nothing or piggyback or anything, but this is what we do. And brother, I would also say, come on back. You know what I'm saying? Come on back.
Sure.
Because look, yo, I think we only scratched the surface, you know what I mean? Because we didn't even talk about what we wanted to, got to talk about, but we got in some good good dialogue, you did. So, but seriously, but everyone, hopefully y'all got something out of this, and we're gonna be seeing y'all soon. Right on. Later.
No, thank you.